She walked into the most powerful man's home with a mop in one hand and a mission to destroy him in the other. She had no idea that the man she was sent to ruin would be the one to change her life forever. Priscilla Monroe stood at the bottom of a long, sun-baked driveway in Scottsdale, Arizona, staring up at a mansion that looked like it belonged on the cover of a magazine. Iron gates, imported stone walls, desert landscaping that somehow looked greener and more alive than anything she had ever seen back home in Atlanta. Palm trees lined both sides of the driveway like soldiers standing at attention, and beyond them, the house rose up against the blue sky like a fortress built by someone who had more money than most people could dream of. She was wearing a plain black uniform. Her hair was pulled back into a tight bun. She carried a small suitcase in one hand and a folder full of fake employment documents in the other. To anyone watching, she looked like a new hire, a maid, nothing more. But Priscilla was not a maid. 3 weeks earlier, she had been singing at a small lounge in Atlanta. It was one of those open mic nights where 20 people showed up and maybe 5 of them actually listened. Priscilla had been doing these gigs for over a year, ever since she lost her music scholarship when the program got defunded. She was 26 years old, broke, exhausted, and running out of hope. But every time she stood in front of a microphone, something inside her came alive. Her voice was the one thing the world could not take from her. That night after her set, a man approached her. He was white, mid-40s, wearing a suit that probably cost more than everything in her apartment combined. He introduced himself as Victor Hale, said he was a businessman based in Beverly Hills, said he had been watching her perform and that she had real talent. Priscilla thanked him and started packing up her things. She had heard lines like that before. Men in suits telling her she was special, always wanting something in return. But Victor did not flirt with her. He did not offer her a record deal or invite her to some party. Instead, he sat down across from her and said something that made her stop moving. "I know about your sister, Priscilla. I know about Renee." Priscilla froze. Her older sister Renee was a nurse back in Atlanta. She was also the only family Priscilla had left. Their parents died when Priscilla was 15, and Renee, 7 years older, had raised her. Renee had sacrificed everything to make sure Priscilla had a chance at life. And now Renee was sick, a serious kidney condition that was getting worse by the month. She needed a transplant procedure, and the cost was over $200,000. Insurance covered a fraction. The rest was a mountain that Priscilla could not climb no matter how many open mic nights she did. Victor told Priscilla he could cover every cent. The surgery, the recovery, the aftercare, all of it. All she had to do was one thing. Victor explained that there was a man named Shin Kang-min, a Korean mafia boss who had built a legitimate empire of luxury hotels, high-end restaurants, and commercial real estate across some of the wealthiest cities in America. Scottsdale, Naples, Palo Alto, San Jose. The man's influence was growing every single month. People loved him. Investors trusted him. Politicians showed up to his dinners and shook his hand in public. And Victor Hale, who had once controlled the luxury hospitality market on the entire West Coast, had watched Kang-min take his clients, his contracts, and his reputation piece by piece. Victor hated Shin Kang-min with every fiber of his being. He told Priscilla he needed someone on the inside, someone Kang-min would never suspect, a new maid in his household, someone who could find anything to use against him, access his personal office, copy his files, find a weakness, plant evidence if necessary. Priscilla refused immediately. She told Victor she was a singer, not a spy. She told him to find someone else. But Victor pulled out his phone and showed her a medical report. Renee's latest test results. Her kidney function was declining faster than the doctors expected. Without the transplant within the next few months, the prognosis was going to go from serious to critical. "I am offering you your sister's life, Priscilla," Victor said, his voice calm and steady. "All you have to do is spend a few months cleaning a rich man's house and telling me what you see. That is it. A few months of mopping floors and Renee gets to live." Priscilla stared at the medical report on his phone. She thought about Renee lying in that hospital bed. She thought about the woman who had worked double shifts for years just to keep food on the table when Priscilla was a teenager. She thought about the fact that without this money, her sister was going to die. She said yes. And now here she was, standing in front of Shin Kang-min's estate in Scottsdale, Arizona, heart pounding, palms sweating, about to walk into the home of a man she had been told was powerful, untouchable, and dangerous. A staff member met her at the gate and walked her up the driveway. The front door was massive, dark wood with iron handles. The staff member opened it, and Priscilla stepped inside expecting to see bodyguards, cold hallways, maybe even surveillance cameras aimed at her face. Instead, she saw warm light, open space, the smell of fresh flowers, a hallway lined with art that looked expensive but not showy, and standing in the center of the foyer, waiting for her, was a man. Shin Kang-min. He was tall, lean, with sharp features and calm, warm eyes. He was wearing a simple white linen shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. No entourage, no bodyguards flanking him. He looked at Priscilla and smiled, not a polite smile, a real one. "You must be the new hire," he said. "Welcome, I hope the drive was not too long." Then he stepped aside and held the door open for her. Personally, the most powerful man in the city, holding a door open for a maid. Priscilla walked past him, gripping her suitcase so tight her knuckles ached. The air inside the house was cool and clean, and somewhere down the hall she could hear music playing softly. It sounded like jazz. She thought to herself, "This is the man I am supposed to destroy." And something deep in her gut told her she had just made the biggest mistake of her life. Now let me ask you something. If someone offered to save the person you love most in this world, but the price was betraying a complete stranger, what would you do? Drop your answer in the comments right now. I want to hear you out. Priscilla's first week inside Kang-min's estate was nothing like what she had imagined. She had expected armed guards at every corner, locked doors, cold hallways, whispered threats, maybe even some kind of dungeon in the basement where people got dealt with. Every movie she had ever seen about powerful men told her that behind the smiles and the nice suits, there was always something ugly hiding. But there was nothing ugly in this house. The estate ran like a well-loved family operation. The household staff was small, only about 12 people, and every single one of them genuinely liked being there. Not the fake kind of liking where people smiled because they were afraid of getting fired. These people actually cared about Kang-min and about each other. The head chef was a Filipino woman named Lorna who had been with Kang-min for 9 years. She ran the kitchen like it was her own home and called everyone Anak, which she told Priscilla meant child in Tagalog. The groundskeeper was an older black man named Gerald who had a white beard and a laugh that could fill the entire garden. Gerald told Priscilla on her second day that Kang-min had paid for his granddaughter's college tuition. "Didn't even blink," Gerald said, trimming a hedge with careful hands. "I mentioned it once during dinner, just in passing. Said my grandbaby got into Arizona State, but the tuition was rough. Next morning, Kang-min calls me into his study and hands me a check, full ride. 4 years. He said, 'Gerald, no one in your family should have to choose between working and learning.' That was it. No conditions, no payback, just a good man doing a good thing." Priscilla had smiled and nodded, but inside, something shifted. A small crack formed in the wall she had built around her mission. She was assigned to the east wing of the estate. Her duties included cleaning Kang-min's private study, maintaining the guest suites, and assisting with events when needed. The work was not hard. The house was immaculate to begin with, and Priscilla quickly realized that the staff took pride in maintaining it not because they were forced to, but because they respected the man who owned it. The one person who did not make Priscilla feel welcome was Sung. He was Kang-min's right-hand man and head of household security, former Korean military, built like a wall. He had sharp eyes that seemed to catalog everything, every movement, every word, every glance. From the moment Priscilla arrived, Sung watched her. He asked pointed questions about her background, her previous employers, where she had worked before. Priscilla stuck to the fake backstory Victor's people had prepared for her, but every time Sung looked at her, She felt like he was reading a page she did not want anyone to see. Meanwhile, Priscilla began reporting back to Victor. She would wait until late at night, lock herself in her small staff bedroom, and call him on a burner phone he had given her. Victor wanted information, documents, passwords, access to Kang Min's private office files. But every time Priscilla searched for something incriminating, she came up empty. Kang Min's books were clean. His business dealings were transparent. His office had framed thank you letters from community organizations, children's hospitals, and scholarship programs he personally funded. There were photos on his desk of groundbreaking ceremonies for community centers in Irvine and Palo Alto. There was a handwritten letter from a teenager in San Jose thanking Kang Min for funding her school's music program. There was nothing dark here, nothing hidden, nothing ugly. One evening during her second week, Priscilla was cleaning the hallway outside the dining room when she overheard Kang Min on a phone call. He was speaking to someone about a family in Naples, Florida. One of his hotel employees there had lost their house in a storm. The damage was catastrophic. The family had 2 young children and nowhere to go. Priscilla stood still in the hallway, dust cloth in her hand, and listened. Kang Min's voice was calm and clear. "Cover their temporary housing," he said. "Replace everything they lost, furniture, clothes, school supplies for the kids, and hold the position with full pay until the family is back on their feet. No, I do not want them to worry about anything, just take care of it." He said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Like helping a family put their life back together was just another item on his to-do list. Priscilla stood there for a long time after the call ended. She thought about Victor's words back in Atlanta. He is powerful. He is untouchable. He needs to be brought down. This man was not what Victor described, not even close. That night, Priscilla lay in her small staff bedroom and stared at the ceiling. The room was simple but comfortable. Clean sheets. A small window that looked out over the garden. Kang Min provided good living quarters for all his staff. She thought about Renee. She thought about the surgery. She thought about what she was doing here. For the first time since she arrived, guilt pressed down on her chest like a weight she could not lift. But she could not stop. Not yet. Renee needed her, and Victor was waiting for results. It was Priscilla's second week when the moment happened that changed everything. Kang Min was hosting a private dinner at the estate for a group of investors and partners from across the country. The event was elegant but relaxed. About 30 people, all of them wealthy, all of them connected. A live jazz trio had been booked to perform in the garden lounge, an outdoor space with string lights, stone seating, and a view of the desert mountains that looked like something out of a painting. But 30 minutes before dinner was supposed to start, the lead vocalist called in sick. The trio had no singer. The event coordinator, a young woman named Maid, was on the verge of a breakdown. Priscilla was setting up glassware in the lounge when Lorna walked past and casually said to Maid, "The new girl can sing. I heard her humming in the kitchen yesterday, and I nearly dropped my knife. That voice is something else." Maid turned to Priscilla with desperate eyes. Can you sing?" Priscilla's stomach dropped. She was here to be invisible. The absolute last thing she needed was to draw attention to herself in front of a room full of people. She shook her head quickly. "I am just here to clean. I do not think that is a good idea." But Maid was already spiraling, and before Priscilla could say anything else, Kang Min himself walked in. He had heard the conversation. He looked at Priscilla, and there was no command in his expression. No pressure, just a gentle curiosity. "No pressure at all," he said. "But if you are comfortable, we would love to hear you. That is completely your call." Something about the way he said it stopped Priscilla from refusing again. He was not telling her to sing. He was inviting her, giving her the choice, respecting her enough to let her decide. She thought about it for 5 seconds. Then, against every logical instinct she had, she said yes. That evening, Priscilla stood in front of 30 of the wealthiest and most connected people in the country. She was wearing her plain black staff uniform. Her hair was still pulled back in its simple bun. She had no stage makeup, no spotlight, nothing but a microphone and the soft accompaniment of the jazz trio behind her. She sang a stripped-down version of a classic soul ballad, and something extraordinary happened. The garden went completely silent, not the polite silence of people being courteous, real silence, the kind where the air itself seems to stop moving. Conversations died mid-sentence. Forks stopped halfway to mouths. A woman at one of the tables put her hand over her mouth. A man in his 60s, a billionaire real estate investor from Palo Alto, had tears running down his face. Priscilla sang like she was alone in her childhood church in Atlanta. Like the microphone was a prayer and the night sky was listening. Her voice carried across the garden and into the desert darkness, rich and full and aching with a beauty that made people forget where they were. When she finished, the silence held for 3 full seconds. Then the entire garden erupted in applause. People stood. The billionaire from Palo Alto was still wiping his eyes. Bate was clutching her clipboard to her chest with her mouth open. Kang Min was standing at the edge of the garden, leaning against a stone pillar with his arms crossed. He had not moved since she started singing. He was watching her with an expression Priscilla could not read. It was not attraction. Not exactly. It was something deeper. It was recognition. Like he was seeing her for the first time. Like she had revealed something true about herself without meaning to, and he had caught it. After the dinner, the staff would not stop talking about her. Gerald told her she could sell out arenas. Lorna said she got chills so strong she nearly burned the dessert souffle. Even Sung, who trusted no one and smiled at nothing, gave her a single, quiet nod of acknowledgement. But the most significant reaction came later that night. Priscilla was in the kitchen, cleaning up the last of the dishes from the event. The house was quiet. Most of the staff had gone to bed. She was alone, scrubbing a pan, when she heard footsteps behind her. Kang Min walked in. He was still in his dinner clothes, but he had loosened his collar and rolled up his sleeves. He poured himself a glass of water and sat down on a stool across the counter from her. "Where did you learn to sing like that?" he asked. Priscilla looked at him, and something inside her softened. She told him the truth, this part of it at least. She told him about growing up in Atlanta, about singing in her church choir since she was 7 years old. She told him about her mother, who used to say that God gave Priscilla a voice because he knew the world needed more beauty in it. She told him about the music scholarship she won to a performing arts program and how she lost it when the program got defunded due to budget cuts. She told him that singing was the only thing that had ever made her feel like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Kang Min listened without interrupting. He did not check his phone. He did not glance at the time. He gave her his full attention, and Priscilla realized that this was something Kang Min did with everyone. He listened, really listened, like what you had to say mattered. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You should not be cleaning kitchens, Priscilla." He said her name like it mattered, like she was not a maid, like she was a person with a gift that deserved to be heard. Priscilla looked away because she felt something crack inside her chest, and she did not know how to handle it. This man was kind, not performatively kind, not kind because people were watching, genuinely, quietly, deeply kind. And she was in his home, eating his food, sleeping under his roof, being treated with a respect she did not deserve. Because she was here to ruin him. She mumbled a thank you and went back to scrubbing the pan. Kang Min watched her for another moment, then stood, placed his glass in the sink next to her, and walked out. When he was gone, Priscilla gripped the edge of the counter and closed her eyes. She was in trouble, and she knew it. 3 weeks into her time at the estate, Priscilla was falling apart from the inside. On the surface, she was the model employee, efficient, quiet, reliable. The staff liked her. Even Sung had stopped hovering over her every move, though she still caught him watching her sometimes with those sharp, unreadable eyes. But underneath the surface, Priscilla was drowning. Victor was getting impatient. His calls came more frequently now, sometimes twice a day. He wanted results. He wanted files. He wanted access codes. And when Priscilla told him again that there was nothing to find, Victor's voice turned to ice. "I did not send you there to tell me he is a nice guy, Priscilla. I sent you there to give me something I can use." Then Victor gave her a new assignment. His tech team had prepared a flash drive, a small, ordinary-looking device that, when plugged into any computer, would silently install a hidden program. The program would copy all of Kang Min's financial records, communications, private files, everything. Victor's people would then use that data to fabricate a case against Kang Min, make it look like he was laundering money through his hotel empire. Priscilla pushed back for the first time. "He is clean, Victor. I have looked. There is nothing illegal here. The man runs a legitimate business." "I do not care what he runs," Victor said. "I care about what I can make it look like. Plant the drive. That is all you have to do." Priscilla was silent. Victor's voice dropped lower. "Renee's surgery is scheduled for next month. The deposit has already been paid. If you back out now, I cancel everything. Your sister does not get the transplant, and I will make sure your name gets connected to some very ugly situations. You will never work again. Not in music. Not anywhere." The line went dead. Priscilla sat on the edge of her bed, holding the burner phone, staring at nothing. She was trapped. Victor had her cornered from every angle. The money, the threat, her sister's life. There was no way out that did not end in disaster. Meanwhile, her relationship with Kang Min was deepening in ways she had not anticipated and could not control. He had started inviting her to sit in on the informal staff dinners he hosted every Friday evening. These were casual affairs. Lorna cooked Korean and Filipino fusion dishes that made the whole house smell incredible. Gerald told stories. The staff laughed, argued about sports, talked about their families. And Kang Min sat among them, not above them, eating the same food, laughing at the same jokes, asking about their lives with genuine interest. He asked about Priscilla's music. When he learned that she wrote her own songs, his face lit up in a way she had not seen before. He asked if she would be willing to perform at his foundation's upcoming benefit concert in San Jose. The event supported music education programs for underprivileged youth across Northern California. "You do not have to say yes," he told her. "But I think those kids need to hear a voice like yours. I think it would matter to them." Priscilla said yes before she could stop herself. Over the next 2 weeks, she and Kang Min spent more time together. He drove her to the venue in San Jose for rehearsals. They ate lunch at a small Korean restaurant in Saratoga that Kang Min loved, a family-run place with plastic chairs and the best kimchi jjigae Priscilla had ever tasted. He told her about his father, how the old man had built the original syndicate, how Kang Min had fought for years to dismantle everything illegal and rebuild the entire empire on legitimate ground. "It cost me," he said, stirring his soup. "People I thought were loyal walked away. Some of them tried to take me down for it. They said I was weak, that I was betraying my father's legacy, but my father's legacy was not the syndicate. It was the principle behind it. Take care of your people, protect them. Give them something worth being loyal to." He looked at Priscilla across the table. "People still call me a mafia boss. I let them. The title keeps certain people afraid enough to leave me alone. But the truth is, I am just a businessman who takes care of his people." Priscilla felt sick. One afternoon, a few days before the concert, she witnessed something that destroyed the last of her defenses. A young woman arrived at the estate unannounced. She was barely 20 years old, visibly shaken, her eyes swollen from crying. She was a former employee's daughter. She told Kang Min she was pregnant, that the father had left, that she had been kicked out of her apartment and had nowhere to go. Kang Min sat with her for over an hour. He did not rush her. He did not judge her. He listened to every word she said. When she was done, he made 3 phone calls. He arranged temporary housing for her in one of his properties. He connected her with a doctor. He told her she had a job waiting for her whenever she was ready. No rush, no pressure, no conditions. When the young woman left, Priscilla was standing in the hallway. She had not meant to watch, but she could not look away. Kang Min noticed her. He did not say anything dramatic. He just said quietly, "Everyone deserves someone in their corner, Priscilla. Everyone." That night, Priscilla sat on the edge of her bed, holding the flash drive Victor had sent her. She turned it over in her fingers. It was so small, so ordinary, but it had the power to destroy a man who had done nothing but good since the moment she walked into his home. She thought about Renee. She thought about the surgery. She thought about the look in Kang Min's eyes when he told that young woman she was not alone. She made a decision. She would plant the flash drive, just this once, just enough to keep Victor satisfied and keep Renee's surgery on track. Then she would find a way out. She waited until midnight. The house was silent. She crept down the hallway to Kang Min's study. The door was unlocked. She slipped inside, her heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her teeth. She found the computer. She plugged in the flash drive. The screen blinked and a progress bar appeared. 60 seconds, that was all it needed. 30 seconds, 40, 45. She heard footsteps in the hallway. Her body went rigid. She yanked the flash drive out of the computer, shoved it into her pocket, and spun around. She grabbed a dust cloth from the shelf and started wiping down a bookcase with shaking hands. The door opened. Sung stood in the doorway. His eyes moved from her face to her hands to her pocket and back to her face. The silence between them lasted about 5 seconds, but it felt like an hour. "The study is off limits after hours," Sung said quietly. "You know that." "I am sorry," Priscilla said. Her voice was steady, but just barely. "I forgot something earlier and came back to finish up. I will go." She walked past him and into the hallway. She could feel his eyes on her back the entire way to her room. When she closed her door, she pressed her back against it and slid to the floor. Her hands were shaking so badly she could not hold them still. Sung did not follow her. He did not call out to her, but his suspicion had just turned into certainty. He was going to find out who she really was. Sung began his own investigation the very next morning. He pulled Priscilla's employment records and started verifying every detail, her references, her previous addresses, her work history. Victor's team had done a thorough job building her fake identity, but Sung was methodical, patient, and relentless. He had spent years in Korean military intelligence before becoming Kang Min's head of security. Catching lies was what he was built for. Within 4 days, he found the first crack. The cleaning company Priscilla had supposedly worked for in Atlanta had shut down 2 years ago. The phone numbers listed on her references routed to burner lines that rang but were never answered. Her previous landlord's address did not exist. Something was very wrong, and Sung knew it. But he did not go to Kang Min yet. He wanted more. He wanted to know who sent her and why. Confronting Priscilla without the full picture would just spook her and whoever was behind this. So he watched, and he waited. Priscilla, unaware that the walls were closing in, was focused on 2 things: keeping Renee's surgery on track and trying to manage her growing feelings for Kang Min. The benefit concert in San Jose arrived on a warm Saturday evening. The venue was a beautifully restored theater in downtown, packed with over 500 people. The event supported music education programs for underprivileged youth across Northern California, and the audience was a mix of donors, educators, community leaders, and the students themselves. Kids ranging from 10 to 18 years old who had received instruments, lessons, and opportunities because of Kang Min's foundation. Priscilla performed 3 songs, 2 covers and 1 original. The original was the one that broke the room open. She had written it in her small staff bedroom at the estate, late at night, when the guilt and the longing and the confusion were too heavy to hold inside. It was a song about a woman torn between love and loyalty, between doing what she had to do and doing what she knew was right. She had not planned to perform it. But standing on that stage, under the lights, looking out at a room full of people who were there because a good man cared about kids having access to music, she could not help herself. She sang it, and the room held its breath. When she finished, the silence lasted 3 full seconds. Then 500 people rose to their feet. The applause was deafening. Students were cheering. A woman in the 4th row was crying openly. The billionaire from Palo Alto, the same one who had been at the garden dinner, was on his feet clapping so hard his hands must have stung. Kang Min was in the front row. He stood with everyone else, but he clapped longer than anyone. His eyes never left her, not during the standing ovation, not when she took her bow, not when she walked off stage. After the concert, backstage, the area was buzzing with energy. Staff, donors, and performers were mingling. Priscilla was standing near a side exit, trying to catch her breath, when she felt someone approach. It was Kang Min. He stood in front of her. The noise of the crowd faded into the background. For a moment, it was just the two of them. "That last song," he said. "Who was it about?" Priscilla looked into his eyes, and the truth was right there on the tip of her tongue. "It is about you. It is about what I am doing to you. It is about the fact that I am falling for a man I was paid to destroy." But she could not say any of that, so she swallowed the truth and said, "Someone I have not met yet." Kang Min held her gaze. His expression was soft, almost tender, but there was something searching in it, like he was looking for the thing she was not saying. Then he nodded slowly. "I hope he deserves you," he said quietly. He turned and walked back toward the crowd. Priscilla stood there alone in that backstage corridor. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She wiped them away quickly, but they kept coming. The man who just walked away was the best man she had ever known, and she was the worst thing that had ever happened to him. Victor Hale was done waiting. Priscilla had been inside Kang Min's estate for over a month, and she had delivered almost nothing useful. The flash drive upload had been interrupted before it could finish. The files she described, the clean books, the legitimate business records were worthless to Victor. He needed something he could twist, something he could weaponize. So he decided to accelerate the plan. Without telling Priscilla, Victor sent his son Nolan to Scottsdale. Nolan was 28, lean, sharp-featured, and permanently tense, like a man who had spent his entire life bracing for impact. He had grown up in his father's shadow, doing whatever Victor told him to do, carrying out orders he did not always agree with because disagreeing with Victor Hale was not something anyone did twice. Nolan's cover story was simple. He was presenting a business partnership proposal to Kang Min, a luxury resort development deal in Bellevue, Washington. While Nolan kept Kang Min distracted with meetings and negotiations, Victor's tech team would attempt to remotely access Kang Min's systems using the partial data Priscilla's interrupted flash drive upload had captured. But the business proposal was not the real plan. The real plan was something Priscilla did not know about, something that should have terrified her. Victor had been building a secondary operation for weeks, a backup, a failsafe. He had his people create an entire set of forged evidence, fabricated communications, fake financial transfers, doctored emails, all designed to make it look like Priscilla had independently infiltrated Kang Min's household to steal proprietary business information for a competing firm. The forgeries were meticulous, detailed, convincing. If the data theft worked, great. Victor would use it to destroy Kang Min's reputation and take back the market. But if anything went wrong, if the operation was exposed or if Priscilla got caught, Victor would release the forged evidence. Priscilla would be framed as a corporate spy. She would take the fall. Kang Min's reputation would still be damaged by the scandal, and Victor would keep his hands perfectly clean. Priscilla was expendable. She had always been expendable. She just did not know it yet. Nolan arrived at the estate on a Tuesday afternoon. He met Kang Min in the main conference room, and within 20 minutes, something shifted inside him that he did not expect. Where Victor manipulated, Kang Min collaborated. Where Victor threatened and pressured, Kang Min listened and asked questions. Nolan sat through a meeting with Kang Min and his development team and watched a man run a business with integrity, transparency, and genuine respect for every person in the room. The contrast with his own father was so stark it made Nolan physically uncomfortable. This was not the villain his father had described. This was a man who was simply better at the game and who played it honestly. Nolan also encountered Priscilla. It happened by chance. He was walking through the East Wing hallway after the meeting when he saw her coming out of one of the guest suites carrying fresh linens. He recognized her immediately. He had seen her photo in his father's files. Priscilla did not recognize him. She gave him a polite nod and started to walk past. "Wait," Nolan said, his voice low. He glanced down the hallway to make sure no one was listening. "You are Priscilla, right?" She stopped. Something about his tone made her guard go up. Who are you? Nolan Hale. Victor is my father. The color drained from Priscilla's face. Nolan spoke quickly. You need to be careful. My father is not going to let you walk away from this clean. He has a backup plan, and you are part of it, not the way you think. What are you talking about? Priscilla whispered. But before Nolan could answer, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Sung appeared at the far end, walking toward them. Nolan straightened up, gave Priscilla a polite, businesslike nod, and walked away without another word. Priscilla stood there, heart hammering, clutching the linens so hard her fingers ached. He has a backup plan, and you are part of it. What did that mean? She did not have time to find out, because that same night, Sung finally got the proof he had been looking for. He had traced the burner phone Priscilla used to call Victor. He did not have the full picture yet. He did not know who she was calling or exactly what the plan was, but he had enough. Phone records showing encrypted calls to an outside number on a device that was not registered to any known carrier. The fake employment history, the timeline of her late-night activity, it all painted a clear picture. Priscilla was reporting to someone. She had been planted here. She was not who she said she was. Sung went to Kangmin that night. The scene was quiet and devastating. Kangmin was in his study, reading, a cup of tea going cold on the desk beside him. Sung walked in, closed the door, and placed a thin folder on the desk. Kangmin looked at the folder, then at Sung. Then he opened it and read. The phone records, the fake references, the employment gaps, the burner phone, all of it. He read every page. His face did not change, but his hands, resting on the desk, slowly closed into fists. His knuckles went white. Are you sure? He asked quietly. I am sure, Sung said. She was sent here by someone. She is not who she says she is. The silence in that room was thick enough to choke on. Then Kangmin said something Sung did not expect. Do not confront her, not yet. Sung frowned. Sir, she is a threat. We need to remove her immediately. No, Kangmin said, and his voice was steady but heavy. I want to know who sent her and why, and I want to hear it from her. Sung stared at him. You want to wait for her to confess? I want to give her the chance, Kangmin said. She is not a bad person, Sung. I have watched her for weeks. Whoever sent her here used something against her. I want to know what it was. Sung disagreed. Everything in his training told him to neutralize the threat immediately. But he had served Kangmin for over a decade, and in that time, he had learned one thing above all else. Kangmin's instincts about people were almost never wrong. Fine, Sung said, but I am doubling security on the study, and if she makes one more wrong move, I am ending this myself. Kangmin nodded. Sung left. And Kangmin sat alone in his study, looking at the folder. And for the first time since Priscilla arrived, the warmth in his eyes was replaced by something else. Hurt. The next few days were agonizing. Kangmin knew the truth about Priscilla, but he did not let on. He still greeted her in the mornings. He still asked about her day. He still treated her with the same quiet respect he showed everyone in his household. But something had shifted, and Priscilla could feel it. There was a distance that had not been there before, a careful, measured space between them that she could not explain. He smiled at her, but the smiles did not reach his eyes the way they used to. He spoke to her, but the conversations were shorter. He no longer lingered in the kitchen after staff dinners. He no longer asked about her music. It felt like a door closing slowly, and Priscilla did not know why, but it made her chest ache in a way that had nothing to do with guilt. Meanwhile, Priscilla received a call from Renee's hospital in Atlanta. The surgery had been moved up. It was happening in 10 days. The deposit had been confirmed by an outside financier. Everything was on track. Priscilla should have felt relief. Instead, she felt the noose tightening. The surgery being moved up meant Victor was accelerating everything. The closer the surgery got, the less room she had to question anything, to push back, to find another way. Then Nolan Hale did something that changed everything. He called Priscilla from a private number late on a Wednesday night. His voice was tight, strained, like a man who had been packing for hours before picking up the phone. "I do not have much time," he said, "so just listen." And then he told her the truth, all of it. He told her about Victor's backup plan, the forged evidence, the fabricated communications and financial records designed to frame Priscilla as a corporate spy who had infiltrated Kangmin's household on her own. He told her that if anything went wrong, if the operation was exposed, Victor planned to release that evidence to media outlets and law enforcement. Priscilla would be arrested. Kangmin's reputation would still take a hit from the scandal, and Victor would walk away untouched. "My father does not care about you, Priscilla," Nolan said. "He never did. You are a tool. When tools break, he throws them away." Then Nolan told her one more thing, the thing that nearly killed her. "The deposit for your sister's surgery. It was made through a shell account. The funds are not real. 3 days before the procedure, the deposit is going to bounce. Your sister will be removed from the surgical schedule. My father was never going to pay for the transplant. He was going to let your sister die and let you take the blame for everything." Priscilla dropped the phone. It clattered on the floor of her bedroom, and she heard Nolan's voice still coming through the speaker, tinny and distant, saying her name. But she could not move. She was on her knees on the floor, gasping, feeling the walls close in around her like a coffin. Victor was never going to save Renee. The whole thing was a lie, every promise, every reassurance, every cold, calculated word. He had dangled her sister's life in front of her like bait, and Priscilla had swallowed it whole. She had betrayed a good man for nothing, for a lie. She stayed on the floor for a long time. When she finally got up, her eyes were dry. Something inside her had hardened, not into anger, into clarity. She knew what she had to do. She went to find Kangmin. It was late evening. The sun was setting over the desert, painting the sky in shades of burnt orange and deep gold. She found him in the garden, sitting alone on a stone bench near the far wall. He was looking out at the mountains in the distance, still and quiet, the way he always was when he was thinking. Priscilla walked toward him. Her legs felt like they were made of concrete. Every step was a battle, but she kept walking. Kangmin heard her approach and turned. When he saw her face, something in his expression shifted. He could see it. Whatever was coming, it was heavy. "I need to tell you something," Priscilla said. Her voice cracked on the last word. "And when I am done, you are going to hate me, and you should." Kangmin looked at her for a long moment. Then he said simply, "Sit down, Priscilla." She sat. And she told him everything. She told him about Victor Hale, about the meeting in Atlanta, about Renee's condition and how Victor used it as leverage, about the mission to infiltrate his household and find something, anything, to use against him, about the flash drive and the midnight trip to his study, about Victor's plan to fabricate evidence and frame Kangmin for crimes he had never committed, about the forged backup evidence designed to frame her as well, about the shell account and the fake surgery deposit, everything. She did not leave a single thing out. She did not make excuses. She did not soften the edges. She told the raw, ugly truth, and she cried through most of it, tears streaming down her face and dropping onto her clasped hands. When she finished, the silence between them was the loudest thing she had ever heard. The desert wind moved through the garden. Somewhere in the house, she could hear the faint sound of Lorna closing up the kitchen. The world kept turning, but in that garden, on that bench, everything was still. Kangmin did not yell. He did not call for desung. He did not stand up and walk away. He sat very still, looking at the mountains, his jaw tight, his hands resting on his knees. Then he spoke. "I already knew." Priscilla's head snapped toward him. "What?" "Desung told me days ago," Kangmin said. His voice was quiet, controlled. But underneath the control, she could hear the weight of what this had cost him. "He found the burner phone, the fake references, the late-night calls. I knew you were reporting to someone. I knew you were not here by accident." Priscilla could not breathe. "You knew, and you did not confront me." "No." "Why?" He turned to look at her. His eyes were full of pain, but they were also full of something else, something steady and unmovable, something that looked like the last stubborn ember of a fire that refused to go out. "Because I wanted to believe you were better than whoever sent you," he said. "And you just proved that you are." The words hit Priscilla so hard she actually flinched, like a physical blow, like the kindest thing anyone had ever said to her, and the cruelest, all at the same time. He had known. He had known for days that she was a threat, that she was lying to him, that she had been planted in his home by someone who wanted to destroy him. And instead of throwing her out, instead of having Sung escort her off the property, instead of doing what any reasonable person would do, he had waited. He had given her the chance to tell the truth on her own. And she had taken it. Kang Min stood up. He did not touch her. He did not offer comfort. The hurt was too fresh for that, but he did not condemn her either. "We will figure this out," he said. "Not tonight. Tonight I need to think." He walked inside without looking back. Priscilla sat alone in the garden as the last light disappeared from the sky. The desert went dark. The stars came out, sharp and bright and infinite. She sobbed into her hands until she had nothing left. She did not know if she had just saved herself or destroyed the only good thing she had ever had. Kang Min did not speak to Priscilla for 2 days. Those 2 days were the worst of her life. She continued her work in the house because she did not know what else to do. She cleaned. She organized. She moved through the rooms like a ghost. The staff sensed something was wrong. Gerald asked her if she was okay. Lorna brought her tea she did not drink. Even Sung, who had every reason to despise her, said nothing cruel. He simply watched her with those sharp eyes and kept his distance. On the 3rd morning, at dawn, there was a knock on her door. Sung stood in the hallway. His expression was unreadable. "Kang Min wants to see you in his study," he said. Priscilla followed him down the hallway. Her legs felt numb. She was certain this was it. He was going to let her go, fire her, maybe have her arrested. She deserved all of it. The study door was open. She walked in and stopped. Kang Min was sitting behind his desk. Sung took a position near the door. But they were not alone. A woman Priscilla had never seen before was seated in one of the leather chairs. She was in her early 40s, black, immaculately dressed, with reading glasses perched on her nose and a legal pad on her lap. She radiated competence the way a furnace radiates heat. And in the other chair, looking like he had not slept in 3 days, was Nolan Hale. Priscilla froze in the doorway. Her eyes went from Nolan to Kang Min and back again. Kang Min looked at her. For the first time in 2 days, he spoke to her directly. "Sit down, Priscilla. We have work to do." She sat. Kang Min introduced the woman. Her name was Monica Vance. She was one of the top litigation attorneys on the West Coast, based in San Francisco. She had represented Fortune 500 companies, tech moguls, and high-profile whistleblowers. Her record in court was near perfect, and she was already working on Kang Min's behalf. Then Kang Min explained what had happened, while Priscilla thought he was shutting her out. He had not been sitting in silence for 2 days. He had been building a counterattack. The night Priscilla confessed, after he walked away from her in the garden, Kang Min had called Monica Vance. He told her everything. He laid out the entire situation, from Victor's scheme to the forged evidence to the fake surgery deposit. Monica was on a plane to Scottsdale by morning. Then, the next day, Nolan Hale showed up at the estate's front gate and asked to speak to Kang Min privately. Nolan had spent the 2 days since his phone call to Priscilla in a state of moral freefall. He had gone back to his father's operation in Beverly Hills, looked at the man Victor Hale truly was, and realized he could not be part of it anymore. The guilt had been building for years. Helping his father destroy a good man was the breaking point. Nolan brought everything: Victor's internal communications, the forged evidence files, the shell company records proving the surgery deposit was fraudulent, emails between Victor and his tech team discussing the flash drive operation. Everything documented, time-stamped, and backed up on multiple drives. He turned on his own father. And now he was sitting in Kang Min's study, terrified but resolute, ready to testify. Monica Vance had already filed the initial motions for a federal case against Victor Hale. Fraud, conspiracy, attempted corporate sabotage. With Nolan's testimony and the mountain of documentary evidence, Victor's carefully constructed empire was about to implode. Kang-min outlined the plan. Monica would handle the legal assault. Nolan's evidence would be submitted to federal investigators. The forged evidence Victor planned to use against Priscilla would be preemptively debunked with forensic analysis and Nolan's sworn statement. Every escape route Victor had built for himself would be sealed shut. When Kang-min finished explaining, the room was quiet. Then he reached into his desk drawer and slid an envelope across the desk to Priscilla. She looked at it, looked at him. He nodded. She opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a confirmed receipt for Renee's full transplant surgery and recovery costs, paid in full, from Kang-min's personal account. The procedure would proceed on its original schedule. No strings, no conditions, no leverage, just paid. Priscilla stared at the paper. The numbers blurred because her eyes were filling with tears. She looked up at Kang-min. "Why?" she whispered. It was the same question she had asked in the garden. "After everything I did to you, why would you do this?" Kang-min leaned back in his chair. He did not flinch. He did not look away. He looked at her with those calm, steady eyes and said, "Because your sister did nothing wrong. And because you came to me with the truth when it would have been easier to run. That tells me who you really are, Priscilla." Priscilla broke. She put her face in her hands and sobbed. Not quiet, dignified tears. Deep, heaving sobs that shook her entire body. The kind of crying that only happens when every wall you have ever built comes down at once. Sung looked away and shifted his weight by the door. Monica removed her glasses and pressed her lips together. Even Nolan, who barely knew her, had red-rimmed eyes. Kang-min stood, walked around the desk, and placed a single hand on Priscilla's shoulder. "We are going to finish this," he said, "together." The counterattack unfolded with devastating precision over the following weeks. Monica filed the federal case. The FBI opened an investigation into Victor's network of shell companies. News outlets in Beverly Hills and San Francisco began running stories about Victor Hale's decades of shady business practices, sourced directly from the evidence Nolan provided. Victor's investors panicked and started pulling out. His board members resigned one by one. His business partners issued public statements distancing themselves. The empire he had spent decades building began crumbling in real time. Victor, desperate, tried to play his last card. He released the forged evidence against Priscilla to 3 major media outlets, painting her as a rogue corporate spy who had infiltrated Kang-min's household independently. But Monica had anticipated this weeks ago. She had already sent preemptive documentation to every major outlet, including forensic analysis proving the evidence was fabricated, Nolan's sworn statement confirming the forgeries, and a detailed timeline showing Victor's direct involvement in the entire scheme. Every editor who received Victor's leak also received Monica's debunk. The story was dead before it ever drew breath. Victor Hale's credibility was destroyed, publicly, professionally, and legally. Renee's surgery happened on schedule. Priscilla flew to Atlanta to be with her sister. The transplant procedure was a success. The doctors said Renee's new kidney was functioning beautifully. Recovery would take time, but the prognosis was excellent. Priscilla sat in the hospital room holding Renee's hand as her sister woke up from anesthesia. Renee blinked, looked around, saw Priscilla, and said in a groggy, scratchy voice, "Why are you crying? I am the one who just had surgery." Priscilla laughed through her tears. "Because I almost lost you, and I did some terrible things to make sure I did not." Renee squeezed her hand. "You are here, I am here. That is all that matters." For the first time in years, Priscilla felt like she could breathe. 3 months later, Victor Hale had been indicted on multiple federal charges including fraud, conspiracy, and corporate sabotage. His assets were frozen. His company was dissolved. He was awaiting trial in a federal courthouse in Los Angeles, and every legal analyst who commented on the case said the same thing. He was finished. Nolan Hale, who had cooperated fully with investigators and testified against his own father, had been given a second chance. He relocated to Seattle, where he took a position at a small nonprofit that provided job training for formerly incarcerated individuals. It was quiet work, invisible work, the exact opposite of everything his father had taught him. And for the first time in his life, Nolan went to sleep at night without the weight of shame sitting on his chest. Renee was recovering beautifully in Atlanta. She was back at work part-time at the hospital where she had been a nurse for over a decade. Her colleagues had thrown her a welcome-back party with a cake that said the Kidney Queen returns, and Renee had laughed so hard she had to sit down. She called Priscilla every single day. Every call ended the same way. "I am proud of you, baby girl. I am so proud of you." And Priscilla had left the maid position at Kang Min's estate, obviously. That chapter was over, but she had not left Kang Min's world entirely. Kang Min, true to his nature, did not just save Priscilla and walk away. He had connected her with a music producer named Devin Cole in San Jose, a man who had been at the benefit concert and had not stopped thinking about Priscilla's voice since that night. Devin was independent, respected, and known for developing artists with real talent, not manufactured pop stars, but genuine musicians with something to say. Priscilla had been recording, working with Devin in a small studio in downtown San Jose, building songs from the ground up. Her first single was the song she had performed at the benefit concert, the one about being torn between love and loyalty. Devin had produced it with a stripped-back arrangement that let Priscilla's voice carry every ounce of emotion. They released it independently on streaming platforms, and within 2 weeks, it was getting picked up by playlist curators, music bloggers, and independent radio stations. Then something happened that no one expected. A video from the benefit concert surfaced online. Someone in the audience had recorded Priscilla's performance on their phone and posted it months ago, but it had sat dormant with only a few hundred views. Then, a popular music account with millions of followers reposted it with the caption, "Who is this woman, and why is her voice making me cry at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday?" The video went viral, 3 million views in 48 hours. Priscilla's single shot to the top of the independent charts. Interview requests started pouring in. A major label reached out, but Priscilla turned them down. She wanted to build her career her way, on her own terms, with people she trusted. Everything was changing. Her music, her future. The life she had been so certain was going to amount to nothing was suddenly opening up in ways she never imagined. But the thing Priscilla thought about most was not the music. It was not the viral video. It was not the interviews or the chart numbers or the future that suddenly stretched out in front of her like an open road. It was the phone call. 2 weeks after she left Scottsdale, on a regular Tuesday evening, her phone rang. It was Kang Min. No agenda, no business. He asked how Renee was doing. He asked if she had been writing new songs. He told her about a new community center he was building in Irvine and how the kids in the after-school program there reminded him of why he did what he did. He said one of them, a 12-year-old girl named Destiny, had heard Priscilla's single and told Kang Min that she wanted to be a singer too. "I told her she should write you a letter," Kang Min said. "She is working on it. It is 4 pages long so far." Priscilla laughed, actually laughed, and it felt like the first real laugh she had produced in months. They talked for 3 hours that night. They talked every night after that. Sometimes about business, sometimes about music, sometimes about nothing at all. Sometimes they just sat on the phone in comfortable silence, 2 people on opposite ends of a line, not needing to fill the space with words. Kang Min never brought up what she had done, not once. He did not hold it over her. He did not use it as a weapon or a reminder. He had made his decision in that garden the night she confessed. He had chosen to see who she really was, not what she had been pressured into doing. And he had not wavered from that choice. 3 months after she left, Priscilla was back in Scottsdale. Not as a maid, not as a spy, not as someone trying to be invisible. She was there because Kang Min had asked her to come, not to work, not for business, just to be there. She pulled up to the estate in a rented car, and the gates were open. Gerald was trimming the hedges near the front entrance, and when he saw her step out of the car, he dropped his shears and walked over with that big, booming laugh of his. "Look who finally came back," he said, pulling her into a bear hug. "The whole house has been too quiet without you." Lorna came out of the kitchen and wrapped Priscilla in an embrace that smelled like sesame oil and garlic. "You are too skinny," Lorna said, which was her way of saying she loved her. "Come eat." Even Sung was standing near the front door. He did not hug her. He was not a hugging man, but he gave her a nod. The same quiet nod he had given her the night she sang in the garden. Coming from Sung, it was practically a standing ovation. Priscilla walked through the house she had once crept through with a flash drive in her pocket, and everything looked different now. Not the house. The house was the same. She was different. She was walking through it as herself. No lies, no mission, no weight. She found Kangmin in the garden. The same bench. The same spot. The sun was setting over the desert, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, and the mountains in the distance glowed like they were made of warm stone. He was sitting with his sleeves rolled up, looking out at the view, and when he heard her footsteps, he turned. And this time there was no distance in his eyes, no guardedness, no careful, measured space, just warmth, just that look. The same look he had given her the first night she sang in his garden. Recognition. Like he was seeing someone who was exactly where she belonged. Priscilla sat down beside him, close, closer than she had ever sat before. Their shoulders were almost touching. "I wrote a new song," she said. He looked at her. "Yeah, what is it about?" "It is about a man who had every reason to shut someone out," she said, "but he chose not to." Kangmin was quiet for a moment. The desert wind moved through the garden. A bird called out somewhere in the distance. Then he reached over and took her hand. It was the first time he had touched her like this, not as a boss, not as a benefactor, not as a man doing the right thing because that was who he was. He took her hand as a man who had been waiting for the right moment, and this was it. His hand was warm. His grip was gentle but sure. Priscilla felt something unlock inside her chest, something that had been locked so tight for so long she had forgotten it was there. "I would like to hear it," he said. And she sang it to him right there, in the garden, as the sun went down. No stage, no microphone, no audience, no mission, no lies, just her voice carrying across the desert evening, soft and clear and full of everything she had been afraid to say. She sang about a woman who walked into a good man's home carrying a lie. She sang about how the lie got heavier every day until she could not carry it anymore. She sang about the moment she put it down and how it felt like falling and flying at the same time. She sang about forgiveness she did not deserve but received anyway. And she sang about love, not the easy kind, not the kind you find without looking, the kind you have to earn, the kind that grows in the space between honesty and grace. When she finished, the garden was silent. Kangmin did not say anything for a long time. He just held her hand and looked at the sky. Then he turned to her, and she saw that his eyes were glistening. "Stay," he said, not a command, an invitation. The same way he had invited her to sing that first night, with respect and warmth and no pressure at all. "Stay as long as you want." Priscilla looked at this man. This good, kind, impossible man who had given her a second chance when the whole world would have understood if he had turned her away. She looked at him and thought about everything it had taken to get to this moment. The lies, the guilt, the confession, the forgiveness, the distance and the phone calls and the slow, steady work of earning back something she had almost thrown away. "I am not going anywhere," she said. The final image was this. Two people sitting together on a stone bench in a garden in Scottsdale, Arizona. The desert sky going dark, the stars coming out one by one. The sound of a woman's voice, the kind of voice that stops rooms and breaks hearts and puts them back together again, still hanging in the warm evening air. Priscilla Monroe walked into Kangmin's life carrying a lie. But she walked out of it carrying something she never expected to find. Love, redemption, a second chance. And a man who saw who she really was before she had the courage to show him.